Hi, this is Jeevaratnam and welcome to my channel Jeevan Astro Answers. And this topic is about bone fracture. To understand about bone fracture, it's important to learn about bone. Bone is a living growing tissue. A bone is a rigid organ that constitutes a part of the skeleton in most vertebrate animals. The adult human skeleton is made up of 206 bones. These include the bones of the skull, spine, ribs, arms, and legs. Bones are made up of connective tissue, specialized bone cells, and collagen. Collagen are the protein that provides a soft framework, and calcium phosphate is a mineral that adds strength and hardens the framework. Most bones also contain bone marrow, which it produces red and white blood cells and store minerals. Bones work with muscles and joints to hold our body together and support freedom of movement. This is called the musculoskeletal system. The skeleton supports and shapes the body, and it protects delicate internal organs such as the brain, heart, and lungs. Healthy bones are extremely strong and can withstand surprisingly powerful impacts. But under enough force, it may fracture. When you break a bone, healthcare providers call it a bone fracture. That is, a fracture is the medical term for a broken bone. These breaks may happen straight across a bone or along its length. Fractures ranges from small partial cracks to complete breaks and can occur in any bone of the body. Most often, breaks happens when the bone are subjected into a stronger force like accidents. Another reason for fractures are osteoporosis. Osteoporosis are the leading causes of bone fractures which weakens bones. About 200 million people are estimated to have osteoporosis throughout the world. It's a serious disorder. The word osteoporosis means porous bone. It's a disease that weakens bones, and if you have it, you are at a greater risk for sudden and unexpected bone fractures. The disease often develops without any symptoms or pain, and it's usually not discovered until the weakened bones cause painful fractures. Most of these fractures are of the hip, wrist, and spine. Other factors can also increase an individual's risk of attaining fractures or physical trauma, overuse, and deprived health conditions. A bone fracture are usually categorized based on its features. They are closed or open fractures, complete fractures, displaced fractures, partial fractures, stress fractures, etc. In closed or open fractures, the injury doesn't break open the skin and it does not damage the surrounding tissue. By contrast, a compound fracture or open fracture is one that damages surrounding tissue and penetrates the skin. Compound fractures are generally more serious than simple fractures due to the risk of infection. In complete fracture, the break goes completely through the bone, separating it into two. In case of displaced fractures, a gap forms where the bone breaks. Often this injury requires surgery to fix. In partial fractures, the break doesn't go all the way through the bone. In case of stress fractures, the bone gets a crack in it, which is sometimes tough to find in imaging. There are a number of other fracture types including avulsion fractures, comminuted fractures, compression or crest fracture, fracture dislocation, green stick fracture, hairline fracture, impacted fracture, intra-articular fracture, longitudinal fracture, oblique fracture, pathological fracture, spiral fracture, stress fracture, transfer fracture, etc. However, people with a bone fracture will typically experience some of the following like pain, swelling, discolored skin around the affected area, protrusion of the affected area at an unusual angle, inability to put weight on the injured area, inability to move the affected area, a grating sensation in the affected bone or joint, bleeding if it's an open fracture. In more severe cases, a person may experience dizziness, faintness, or lightheadedness, nausea, etc. Now, we see the planetary combination for fracture of bones. Houses involved are the 2nd, the 6th, and the 10th, both from Lagna and from Aries. Planets involved are Saturn, the Sun, Mars, and Mercury. Mars referred to the neck, Saturn to limbs, Rahu to feet, Mercury to the back, 4th house to ribs, Capricorn to the knee, 11th to the left hand and 3rd to the right hand and collarbones, 2nd to the right leg and the 12th to the left leg. The Sun with the Moon, Saturn and Mars in the 8th, the 5th or the 9th leads to fracture. Rahu, Saturn and Mercury in the 10th leads to the fracture. The Moon with Mars in the 6th house leads to fractures. The Moon in the 1st, Saturn in the 4th and Mars in the 10th leads to the fracture. The Sun in the 1st, Saturn in the 5th, the Moon in the 8th and Mars in the 9th leads to the fracture. The Moon in Saturn's house placed between malefics and the Moon in the 2nd, Mars in the 4th and the Sun in the 10th leads to the fracture. The Sun in the 4th, Saturn in the 8th and the Moon in the 10th leads to the fracture. Saturn in the 2nd, the Moon in the 4th and Mars in the 10th leads to the fracture. The Sun and Mars in the 3rd aspected by Saturn also leads to fractures. Fractures are more common. The average person has 2 during a lifetime. Many broken bones occur because of accidents in the home, at work or at play, and not all may be preventable. And also, when we age, there is an increased risk of getting falls or common, and that is also leads to fractures. But the diet and lifestyle patterns are the most important factors that it can prevent fractures. To maintain a strong, healthy bone, we need a diet rich in calcium throughout our life. Vitamin D is also very important because that enables the body to absorb calcium. And we have to maintain the right level of various hormones for a healthy bone. And also, maintaining a muscle strength and mass helps burn calories and it restores balances. Using proper safety equipment and precautions may minimize the risk of injury. These all factors that it help to prevent the risk of attaining bone fractures. I hope you might have enjoyed this video. Anyway, we will meet you soon in my next video. Till then, bye. Take care.